We are live from Ibiza for another edition of Cafe DM number 23 with your host, Michelle Reid, my special co-host, and a special guest coming all the way from New York. How are we today? Our trifecta of fantasticness.
Doing great. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Thanks for being here, Nathan. I appreciate it. And Emma, how are we today?
Pleasure. I'm really good, thanks. Yeah, just been in the sea, so I'm brilliant.
Fantastic. So the first time that we've ever had a trifecta on the Cafe DM, but I figured it was appropriate to continue to bring Emma on as she is leading the charge on our Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So if you haven't seen her video, I highly suggest going back and watching that once you finish watching this, of course. And we are going to talk today about the mighty mitochondria. So people will be like, what's mitochondria? So by the end of this episode, you should have a really good understanding about how these little powerhouses, these little organelles supply our body with all the energy we need. So from that, Nathan, I'm going to introduce you. And maybe Emma wants to introduce Nathan about how come you selected Nathan to come onto the show, Emma.
So last week, thank you. And thanks for having me back. And hi, Nathan. How lovely we've got all these different countries. It's great. Different nationalities as well.
Super cool.
So my connection to Nathan is through Jack Cruz, because as I mentioned last week, I stumbled upon Jack about, 4 years ago now, and he opened my eyes to the world of the mighty mitochondria and light and energy and using the earth to heal. And I met many wonderful people through Jack. He has a great community around the world, and Nathan was one of them. And Nathan has a huge amount of experience, and I know he has a similar story. So I really like the fact that Nathan's learned, and not just, he's healed himself as well. So that's why I felt it was good to invite him on.
Cool. I'm really pleased that you agreed, Nathan. So thank you so much. So what we do now,
I'm super excited to be here. So
is we all pick up our cups and we cheers each other from our respective living rooms. But Nathan, I want to know what's in your cup. What's brewing this morning for you?
So this is a Four Sigma coffee. It's an instant coffee, and I fast on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so I normally skip my coffee. And but I made it just for the show. And, it's a little embarrassing. I used to have a great coffee place down the street at this grocery store. They had really good gourmet coffees, but the store moved, and then with the whole COVID thing, you can't get your own coffee anymore. So lately I've been getting my coffee from Dunkin' Donuts just because it's convenient, and their dark roast is actually pretty good. But, this FOURSIGMATIC has some mushrooms in it. It's pretty good too.
Cool. Yeah. Emma, you drinking a mud water today?
I'm not actually. It's the afternoon, so I've moved on to tea. So I'm on an Earl Grey. Actually, an Earl Grey and green mixed together.
Cool. So, wow. I'm going to ask you how your sleep is tomorrow after that.
I know, it's a bit dicey. I like to live dangerously still. I told you I liked adrenaline last week,
we all do secretly. Cool, yeah. Nathan. So Dunkin' Donuts, it's been a while since I heard the word Dunkin' Donuts, being a North American myself. Not getting any donuts while you're getting your coffee, I imagine.
Hell no.
No. Actually, there's talk of Tim Hortons opening in the UK. I don't know if that means anything to you, but it's like the Canadian
I'm
equivalent.
familiar with it. I've never been there. I've seen them before, but I've just never ventured into one.
Yeah, you're not missing much. Their coffee is not very good. So
yeah,
cool. So I like it. Both of my co-host and my guest, they're onto the mushroom coffee. Something I'm going to have to get on, Emma, for sure. Cool. Awesome. So very clear. So thank you very much for joining us for our coffee. Emma and I not on the coffee today. Next, Nathan, as this is our first meeting, I'm really looking forward to you spilling the beans. And I am really curious about what got you into this business. So as a holistic coach, an energy healer, a mitochondria expert, tell me what was your entry into this sort of wellness, this well-being side of the industry?
Yeah, well, so I had a corporate job for 20 years. And things were going pretty well. And probably about 10 years into it, I started noticing my energy wasn't what it used to be. And you know, occasionally I'd be tired and it would kind of affect my workday and just life in general. And as time went on, I had more and more symptoms. I started having digestive issues. I started having insomnia. I started having some anxiety, brain fog, and it was kind of a gradual decline in health. Okay. And I kind of got to a point like 10 years later where I was in really bad shape. Okay. And kind of along the way, every year I'd go to my doctor and just be like, hey, I'm kind of tired more than often. My sleep isn't what it used to be. And he'd run the standard blood test and everything always came back in the, you know, normal range for the outdated blood test we still use here in the US and probably around the world. Yeah. And he was probably like, you know what, you're getting older, but I was only in my 30s, so I didn't really buy that. And he's like, you're probably working, you probably have a lot of stress, which was true. I had a very stressful job. So I kept asking questions and eventually I got recommended to an integrative medicine doctor. So if you don't know what integrative medicine is in addition to looking at your blood, they look at your hormones, your vitamin levels, mineral levels. So this guy tested me for everything. He took my blood, my pee, my poop, saliva, and I found out I had Lyme disease. My hormones were super low. My vitamins were like super low. I had candida, which is an intestinal, you know, fungal overgrowth in your intestines. I had mercury toxicity. Wow. And I was actually excited because I'm like, yeah, I'm not crazy. And I know what I have, so now I can address it. And 6 months later, I was much worse off than when I started. Wow. My neurological symptoms got much worse. My brain fog was really bad. My anxiety was getting worse. I had depression. And I was just in a really dark place. Yeah. So I turned to Google and I was just Googling like crazy. And I had been trying all different things. Along the way, I did acupuncture. I had worked with a chiropractor for years. I did laser therapy. I did like foot detox baths, hyperbaric oxygen, and nothing like really worked. So I'm Googling and somehow I end up on this site, drjackcruise.com or jackcruise.com. And I read one of his blogs and it sounded really crazy, and I had really bad brain fog. So a lot of it I didn't understand because this guy's a neurosurgeon and his blogs are super technical. Okay. But even though I didn't understand it, I knew that this guy was different than anyone else I ever came across. So I tried out some of his protocols and within 2 to 3 weeks, I was feeling better than I had in many, many months at that point. Wow. And that was in August 2013. And I haven't looked back since. Wow. And within a couple months, my health was much, much better than it was. Wow. So other things happened along the way, but I got to a point where I was like, you know what, I don't like my job that I do. I want to do something else. So I ended up quitting my job, going into coaching, and here I am today. Wow.
That's incredible. What a story. Like all of that as well. Like you say, metal toxicity, Lyme disease, like all very major. Can you, in terms of Lyme disease, it's a bit of a question mark, a bit curious for me. Always from tick-borne Lyme disease, or?
Well, so it's carried and it's transmitted by ticks. It's a bacterial infection. Okay. Now, we don't have a lot of published research showing this, but a lot of people believe you can get it from mosquitoes, maybe from spiders, maybe from other insects. Wow. I never found a tick on me, and a lot of people with Lyme disease never find a tick on them. Yeah. I used to be a mosquito magnet. Okay. Like, I'd be outside with other people, and I'd get 20 bites, and other people wouldn't get bit at all. So I believe I got it from mosquitoes. Okay. But I don't know for sure.
Wow. And you would say like in like a couple months that after following some of Mr. or Dr. Cruz's protocols, you were feeling better.
Yeah, I wasn't 100% out of the woods, but I turned a major corner and my energy was coming back. My sleep was starting to get better. I also had really bad chronic pain kind of in my neck and my shoulders. My pain substantially reduced. Wow. And I was on all these antibiotics and I got super emaciated. So I went from, what's the kilos? I guess from about 80 kilos down to, about 90 kilos down to 60 or something like that.
Wow.
So I was super emaciated. Yeah. And I started gaining weight back too. So I have like a year-long period with hardly any pictures of me because I just hated how I looked.
Oh.
And I used to be like a photo bomber, but then all of a sudden I was just like, I'd run from the camera. And it was just such a good feeling looking in the mirror, being like, yeah, that's how I used to look.
Crazy. Wow. Yeah. What a story. So, and then how did you guys, and how does Ibiza come into this equation? Have you guys met in Ibiza?
No, I wish. So I used to be quite the clever. I actually wore my my Marcus Schultz shirt.
Yeah.
I love it.
I used to really be into the club scene. I was a DJ, and that was kind of really part of what caused all my health symptoms. I don't believe I got sick from Lyme disease. I believe I had the bacteria in my body for many, many years, but I had a strong immune system and it fought it off. But just from my life of partying, of late nights, of not getting good sleep, not taking good care of myself, I beat down my body. I beat down my immune system, and this infection was able to become active. But I think it was in 2005. I was married at the time. So there were three couples that went, and we went for like 5 or 6 days and just partied like rock stars. And I got to see Marcus Schultz there, one of my favorite DJs, and Armin van Buuren and Paul van Dyk, and just a whole bunch of DJs I was really into. And we had an amazing time. It was really a very special place. And if I went back again, I would do things very different than I did then. But it was an amazing time. And cool. I hope to go back at some point in my life.
Cool. Well, I hope.
But then, so the way I connected with Emma is just people that follow Jack Kruse. It's a great community, and I've just reached out to a lot of other people that are connected with him, and just kind of meet them that way.
Cool. Very cool. Very cool. Well, we hope to welcome you back one day, maybe next year, maybe the year 2022, maybe sounds a little bit better than 2021 right now. Would you go back to the clubs though, or would you just get into the sea?
Definitely get into the sea. I had some good food there, so definitely check out the different restaurants. If I would go to some daytime shows, but I usually go to bed now like 9:30.
Yeah, I think we all do.
Those don't start until like, I don't know, like midnight or something.
Nathan, you could do what I do, which is turn up at 7. So, I go to bed because I still want to party. I love partying. But yeah, I need my sleep. So we could go together at 7 o'clock in the morning. That's the best time.
I'll get there at 6.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You start early.
It's quite interesting though, because everybody that we've had on Cafe DM at some stage ended up in Ibiza for a party. Maybe there might be 1 or 2 guests out of the 23 that ever came here for the wellness side of it. And now everybody would do it differently and does it differently, so it's interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see what 2021 brings for Ibiza, whether our discotheques will open or not. But I definitely think the wellness side of the island is going to be booming next year. So maybe it's not going to be for a club, Nathan, but maybe it'll be for a retreat, something like that.
Yeah. That'd be a lot of fun.
Cool. You could bring your son. I'm sure he would love it.
He'd love it.
He loves
Great island children.
Cool. Well, that's Emma will have some very good places to show you for the kids for sure.
Yeah, awesome.
Cool. Okay. Origin story, very clear and impactful. So I'm really looking forward to talking about how you did manage to heal yourself. What brought you to Ibiza for the first time, clear. And what would bring you to Ibiza for the second time, even more clear. So now we're going to move on to a little science lesson in the mitochondria. So can you give us a little bit of a bit of a science lesson, really, Nathan, and tell us what the mitochondria is and how it's so important to our well-being.
Yeah, so the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. And most people remember that, even if they don't realize they remember it. If they hear it, they're like, oh yeah, I heard that before. And they heard it in high school science. And that's pretty much the extent of what you learn. But you have, the mitochondria is actually a bacteria. And you have anywhere from a few hundred to several thousand in your cells. And they make energy so your cells can do things. And clumps of cells make tissue. And some of that tissue is your organs, some is muscle, some is fat. But all these different cells have mitochondria. And it's kind of like the engine of your car. So you need your engine to be working for your car to move, and you need your mitochondria to be working for your body to move and just to do all the things that it can do. And the really interesting thing is you can actually have, part of aging is your mitochondria, they mutate. When they mutate, they don't make energy. So you can actually have 50% of your mitochondria mutated and not making any energy and still have healthy cell function, which is pretty interesting, right? And that kind of explains where things really go wrong is at about 70% mutated mitochondria. That's when the cell no longer functions. And this can happen in different parts of the body. So if it happens in your brain, that's neurodegeneration. If it happens in the heart, that's heart disease. And you have the highest density of mitochondria in the brain and in the heart. And these mitochondria, there's 5 proteins, and the 5th protein is actually, it's a little engine, it spins. And engines put off magnetic fields. And the human heart actually puts off a magnetic field that extends 12 feet from the body. So it's a very weak magnetic field. You can't measure it with typical instruments, but if you have a very advanced instrument, you can measure it. But as humans, we all put off this magnetism.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Right? And that's from our mitochondria. So the number one driver of health and longevity is your mitochondrial health. The number one driver of disease is poor mitochondrial health. So all chronic diseases that we're seeing today, cancer is a mitochondrial disease. Autoimmune is a mitochondrial disease, neurodegeneration, lung disease, diabetes, obesity. These are all diseases of poor energy production or lack of homeostasis, lack of balance.
Interesting. And how does the mitochondria and the metabolism, how do they work together?
So when you have poor mitochondrial function, that essentially is poor metabolism. Mitochondria use 2 different things for fuel. They use electrons and protons for fuel.
Right.
And the protons come from hydrogens. So at the end of the day, when you eat your food, your body breaks it down and it extracts the electrons from your food.
And
so
the electro transport chain.
The electron transport chain, very good.
I vaguely remember that from my schooling. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. So there's basically 2 different kinds of energy production. There's carbo or sugar metabolism and fat metabolism. And you can do one or the other. So let's say you have a hybrid car. So hybrid cars, they can do electric, they can do gas. And when both are working, the car is very fuel efficient. But let's say you have a hybrid car and the battery part of it dies, you can only use the gas. You've lost a lot of that energy efficiency. And the same thing can happen in us where we have the ability to use glucose as fuel, but not fat. That's the start of metabolic disease. And what happens is you store that fuel. That's called obesity. That's called weight gain. And you become much less efficient at making energy because you can only use one form of fuel.
I see. Interesting. And now last week we touched upon Emma saying one of her kind of like aha moments was is the fact that cancer is a disease of energy. So we brought you on this week so that we can get into a little bit more of a discussion about that. So Emma, if you wanted to just remind everybody about what was brought you to Ibiza for your healing, that would be really good. And then we can continue on with Nathan.
Yeah, I mean, I realized after reading the books mentioned last week and going into Jack's world that I was living upside down, and, you know, I had no circadian rhythm. I had no melatonin. My eyes, my retina had been covered up since the age of 6. My skin was covered up because I lived in England. Yes, I felt good when I was abroad. And so basically these aha moments were, wow, light. I wasn't getting any, you know, apart from blue light. And yeah, these were the aha moments, which I then started delving into Jack and finding the link with light and how that affected, and the circadian rhythm and how that affected your mitochondria and your melatonin. And that's when I started. I mean, Jack's rules to me were, as I said to you last week, sunrise, sunset, and also as much sun as possible. No sunscreen, no glasses, no contact lenses, get cold, and intermittent fasting, no eating after sunset. So my life changed pretty much overnight in terms of sleep. I think that's because I was very much at the bottom. So for me, an incremental gain was huge. You know, I'm not out of the woods, I'm sure, but you know, I was so desperate that what I did took me up a big level, and my deep sleep changed literally, you know, within weeks, in a month or so. So that was my aha moment. And his biggest advice to me, I remember having a consult with him, and he said, and I won't try and do his accent because a Brit doing an American accent's really patronizing, but yeah, he just said, I want your lady bits out in the sun, you know. He said, and I don't care who's watching, you know, I want everything out, all of it, which I now know is called yoni bathing. So he said, you know, the breasts and whatever we want to call it, the yoni. But yeah,
we're in Europe and we're allowed to bathe like that, because in the US, getting your tatas out on the beach is not allowed. I don't think, is it, Nathan? I don't think so.
They have very few, like limited nude beaches, but they're few and far between.
Yeah. What I find fascinating, Emma, is everything that you said about, you know, the light in your eyes, about intermittent fasting, like, is everything that our government is telling us not to do. So cover yourself in sunscreen, really chemical driven sunscreen, protect your eyes with sunglasses, like, you know, eat as much as you can all the time. Like, it's just no wonder we are seeing an epidemic of obesity, of mitochondrial disease, of metabolic health. Like, it is just, it's frustrating. So so on that one, I'm not going to get frustrated. I'm just going to breathe. I'm going to bring
just one final thing I'd say on that is I now watch animals. You know, if you watch animals, they go out first thing in the morning. A cat will sit in the morning sun. They don't bake in it, obviously, so they don't need to wear sunscreen, you know, and they eat a little bit, then they don't, you know, you just watch animals. They know what to do. Yeah. We've just got so lost on the way.
It's true. Well, it's because it's information that we've been fed, or that we're being fed. You know what I mean? It's just constant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the light bulbs, they changed in the 1970s, didn't they? And that had a big impact on our health, you know. So we've created, as Jack says, we've created this amazing blue lit world, but we live in it, and we shouldn't be living in this world. We should be living outside. I mean, you know, that sounds so hippy dippy again, doesn't it? But
it's very Ibiza, Emma.
But it's spot on.
And Nathan, how do the mitochondria like sugar?
How do they like sugar?
They like sugar.
Well, they like it just fine, but it's not as clean of a source of fuel. So it's kind of like coal versus natural gas. Mm-hmm. So coal, you can use it to heat your home. You can use it to make electricity, but there's a lot of pollution, right? And when your mitochondria use glucose for fuel, there's metabolic waste. Mm-hmm. And if you're doing things like reactive oxygen species, yeah. And a lot of these things have a duality. So everyone's like, oh, inflammation's bad. Like, reactive oxygen species make inflammation. Mm-hmm. But they signal to our cells. They help our cells communicate. Mm-hmm. So you do need some. It goes back to balance. Mm-hmm. When you have an imbalance, that's disease. Mm-hmm. So it's maintaining that balance. So when carbs are abundant, when glucose is abundant, like in the summertime, and you're spending time outside, like Emma said, getting sun, your body can process that metabolic waste. There's a process called autophagy, where basically your cells take out the cellular trash. Mm-hmm. So as long as you're eating carbs or glucose outside in the sun, when the sun grows, it's not an issue. But the problem is like where I live now, it's very dark out. There's still a little bit of stuff growing, but in 2 months from now, nothing's going to be growing. So if you eat a whole bunch of glucose that time of year, you're inside all day, your body's not going to be able to take out the trash. Yeah. And if you can remember back in college where maybe you lived in a house where you had a roommate that wasn't good about taking out the trash, things start to stink pretty quick. Yeah. Right? And when that happens in your body, stuff doesn't work so well. That makes inflammation. Inflammation is the enemy of energy production. Mm-hmm. So when you break that healthy balance, you have imbalance, then you have less energy production. For some people, that's fatigue. For other people, that's anxiety. For other people, it's weight gain. And it just kind of depends on your weakest link, really.
Okay. Now, clear again, but what I was alluding to is the fact that we have refined sugar in pretty much everything that we pick up.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That isn't, whole food from our fruit basket or whatever. So again, high fructose corn syrup as well in the US, which is, I'm really leading the charge when it comes to this sort of the metabolic health issue as well. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
So if only people were eating fruit, that would be.
Yeah. Well, fruit is a much better option, and that went way over my head just because sometimes I have some candy, sometimes I have some junk, but it's pretty rare, and it's not part of my radar right now. But yeah, so if we go back to what I was saying about mitochondria using electrons and protons, those protons are hydrogens. Mm-hmm. There's two different kinds of hydrogens your body uses. There's protium, which is light hydrogen, and there's deuterium, which is heavier. So protium is an electron and proton. Deuterium is an electron, proton, and neutron. It has twice the atomic weight. So high fructose corn syrup, the reason it's so bad, it's very high in deuterium. Your mitochondria don't like deuterium so much. It slows them down. Mm-hmm. They make less energy.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So
all that makes sense?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Like I say, I definitely, and we didn't even talk about ATP, but that's okay.
Yeah. Well, the mitochondria make ATP.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm gonna throw it to you as a gentleman who fixed his metabolic health and is on a journey to optimal health. What would you say, Nathan, if people could take away right now? So whether it's dealing with, like you say, cardiovascular disease, maybe pre-diabetes, breast cancer, any cancers, what are, let's say 3 to 4, I'll give you more if you think there are relevance, something that people can take away and implement in their life right now to start to fix their metabolic health and to, so to look after their mitochondria.
Yeah, sure. And Emma actually spilled the beans already.
Yeah.
But it's reconnecting with nature.
Okay.
So it's going out in the morning and watching the sunrise, which sets your circadian rhythm, which controls your body's growth. So your body, all your cells are regenerating at different rates. And when that doesn't happen properly, when you don't regenerate, you degenerate. And that's aging. So that's growth.
Okay.
Circadian rhythm controls metabolism. Mm-hmm. So converting food to energy. When you have poor metabolism, you don't convert food to energy, you store energy, that's fat. Mm-hmm. Controls your hormones. So throughout the day, in the morning, you want cortisol high. That helps wake you up. As the day goes on, you want it to get lower. You want your melatonin to get higher at night. Those are your hormones. If you're a guy, you want to have healthy testosterone levels. For women, progesterone. And women need testosterone too. But it goes back to the proper balance for who you are. Mm-hmm. Right? So connecting with nature. Mm-hmm. Then at night, once the sun goes down, protecting yourself from blue light. And just to define blue light a little better, blue light is the frequency emitted by our screens today, by energy efficient light bulbs. And if you break down the spectrum of colors and put them all in buckets, the bucket with the most light in it from the spectrum of color of our modern lighting would be blue. So each color has a different role. And blue is kind of like an apple's healthy, right? But if you just extract all that sugar from the apple and eat the sugar, is that still healthy? And that's kind of what our modern lights have done. Like blue light is kind of like the sugar of light. And when it's balanced with other things, like from the sun, that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. But when it's not, that messes up your melatonin. Melatonin is anti-cancer. So if you want to avoid breast cancer, if you want to avoid prostate cancer, if you want to avoid any cancer, you need healthy levels of melatonin. So by getting rid of those energy efficient light bulbs, by turning off your screens, by wearing blue blocking glasses, these are daytime blockers, but by wearing
my night ones.
like Gemma's glasses at night.
Yep.
The most important thing to protect are your eyes, but also if breast cancer is a concern, you got to protect your breast indoors. And do what Emma said, when you're outside, if you're able to, bury your breast. And for guys, so that the top cancer for women is breast cancer, the top cancer for men is prostate cancer. Mm-hmm. So a couple of years ago, there was like all these funny memes about guys like sunning their anus. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I actually saw something on Ibiza Winter Residence today about that. So it's still happening.
I just saw someone on the beach doing it, actually. He was letting it all hang out.
Yeah, I haven't seen the memes lately, but I'm glad to hear people are still doing it. Yeah. But there is validity to doing that. And you want to do it in the right place and the right time. But for men, if you can get your prostate in the sun, that's the best way to avoid prostate cancer, which is the #1 cancer for men, because melatonin is anti-cancer. So you have two different kinds of melatonin, the kind of melatonin you release in the absence of light, but you also, your cells, your mitochondria, they make melatonin too. So when you just get exposure to sunlight, that makes melatonin locally. So that's why, for ladies, getting your breast in the sun, and men too, men can get breast cancer as well, believe it or not.
Yeah, of course.
Not as common. But yeah, just getting your body in the sun, living like your ancestors did several hundred years ago. Okay. So that's two. The third thing is really protecting your thoughts. With everything going on today, we're dealing with some heavy stuff. I don't know what it's like in Ibiza. I have some clients in Spain. I know Spain, like mainland Spain, has some very, very strict restrictions. Mm-hmm. And that it causes PTSD. A lot of people, I think, are in shock and don't even realize it. But it takes a heavy toll on our health. Mm-hmm. And there's published research. It's called, I think it's called mitochondrial psychobiology or something like that. But they did a study of women, and they looked at their stress levels before bed, and then they measured their energy production for the next couple of days. So going to bed like in a bad mood, like in a fearful state, depressed, sad, upset about something, so you get in a fight with your spouse, your boyfriend, whatever, girlfriend. You want to kiss and make up before you go to bed, because the next day you have a decrease in energy production. So just being very mindful, being very kind of present, and just acknowledging your thoughts. And it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be fearful, as long as that doesn't become who you are. So it's very important to just get in touch with those emotions, acknowledge them, so your body can release them. And that's going to give you much better mitochondrial health as well. So getting into different, I know Emma teaches yoga, doing these different mindfulness practices, whether it's yoga or meditation or breathing, breath work, whatever works for you, going for a walk on the beach, going for a walk in nature if you don't live by the beach like me. But just doing these different things are also really going to help you protect your mitochondria. So that's three things. Emma mentioned intermittent fasting, which is really good for autophagy, taking out the cellular trash. If you want a bonus, when you stack these things, they're even more powerful. So every Tuesday and Thursday morning, I fast. And what I do in the morning before the sun comes up this time of year, because the sun doesn't come up till 7, is I go outside. I've got a hill right outside my window here. I do hill sprints.
Yes.
I do them in shorts and a t-shirt, so it's pretty chilly this time of year. This morning was 14, which is not super cold, but it's going to be dropping down to like 10, less than 10 Celsius in the coming days. So when you combine cold fasting and high-intensity exercise, that's one of the best things you can do for autophagy. That also activates AMPK, which is kind of like a governor for your metabolism, but it has a ton of anti-aging benefits. Mm-hmm. So that's something you can do. If you make that a part of your life, that is going to keep you young for a very long time.
Cool. I like it. And something that we do here, hill sprints, something that
Michelle runs it, actually. She runs the group, don't you?
Yeah. And it's funny because it's been a bit quiet since it's been summer, but it is definitely time to get it back going, and then jumping in the sea for some cold therapy after, Emma. I think that's what we need to get back to doing now.
Well, I think it's better to be in the sea first, isn't it? And then hill sprint. Mm-hmm. Isn't that right, Nathan? Wouldn't that be the best way around, to get warm after you've got cold? That's what Jack always used to say.
Yeah, that would be best. But if you're a little hesitant to jump in the water when you're not warmed up,
you're
still going to benefit the other way. But yeah, the order of operations does matter. Yeah, so I would say go for cold first, but you can jump in afterwards as well too.
Okay. Yeah, double.
So maybe
just one quick thing about the cold. So if you go and you do like a very intensive like resistance training, like weightlifting thing, you want to hold off on the cold for at least an hour or two, because cold shuts down inflammation so quickly And if you're like pumping iron, you want that inflammation so you can build up bigger muscles.
Yeah.
But if you go for a run, you can jump in the cold right after that.
Cool. Clear. Definitely my protocol for sure, but very clear. I like it. So
Nice.
I feel pretty fortunate, Emma, and I think you know, that we do most of those things here. And I really hope that people watching back are going to take this on board. And even if it's 1 or 2 right now, and then, you know, 1 or 2 later on, don't take off more than you can mindfully chew. That's for sure. But very clear. So nature, sunlight, if you can get everything in, even better. Intermittent fasting. What else do we say, Nathan? What else was there? There was
Blocking blue light.
Oh, yes. Actually, what I thought was very interesting as well, we might as well jump onto that, is making sure that your mobile phone is on airplane mode, especially if it's on your body, right? How many women...
I carried my mobile phone here for the year before I got breast cancer.
Yes.
And, you know, and that's why I've invited Sarah Hodgson on. Nathan, you know Sarah. That's why she's our first guest, because EMF is just, whoa.
Yeah.
Big.
And
EMF, in addition, in fact, if I can just say this real quick, in addition to creating inflammation, it turns off your body's production of melatonin. So it's kind of a double whammy to put them on your organs, like your breast.
Yeah.
I used to, for work, I had a work phone, I had a personal phone. I used to have a phone in each pocket, each of my front pocket.
Wow.
And with my ex-wife, we tried to conceive for 6 years. And this might be TMI if it is, just years for a minute. But in the process, I had my sperm tested. I had a very low count. I had poor motility.
Okay. Interesting.
And I have a 4-year-old kid now. So I don't put my phones in my pocket anymore. So yeah, you thanks for bringing that up, Michelle. But yeah, you do not want to carry your phone by your organs. Talk on speaker. Don't put it by your most important organ, your brain. Talk on speaker, or use like air tube headphones.
Yeah. Don't use the normal earphones, because they're like a super highway to the brain. Make sure you get the ones that block with the little, the things there, like you said.
So what would be interesting is if we could have a link to your blue blockers of choice, Nathan, and to what you just mentioned there, Emma, as well. So people know where they can find these things as well if they want to, again, invest in their health and their longevity, really. That's a really easy thing that people can do as well. So I actually spoke with Vicky Godfrey, who I'm going to have a chat with, and she was saying that prostate cancer, again, because a lot of men wearing this in their back pocket without having it on airplane mode. So whenever I see these young women walking down our promenade with these in there, and I just know that they're not on airplane mode, it's just so, it's sad. So yeah, we really need to start promoting that for sure.
It breaks my heart when I see that.
Totally. And
the children, the worst is children. Yeah. That really upsets me. And you know, listen, I didn't know, but yeah.
Well, we know, and we can now, we can spread the message, right? All right, Nathan. Well, I hope you were able to get everything out that you wanted to get out, because it very quickly runs over half an hour here on a good old Cafe DM.
The time flew by.
It does fly by. So I think we could probably be on here for hours. But what we're going to do is we're going to wrap up now, in essence of keeping to our 30 to 40 minutes of a good old chat. And what we're going to do is I'm going to ask everybody to go follow Nathan. So we're going to give you 2 options to follow him on today. You can find him on Facebook. If you type in Nathan Walz, so NATHAN WALZ, and then you'll also find Holistic Health Coach. So you've got Nathan Walz, Holistic Health Coach. And then, of course, what I think is really important, if you could go subscribe to his channel on YouTube, because there is a plethora of fantastic information on his channel. So very easy. Again, just Nathan Walz as well. So very 2 easy ways to go follow Nathan. Clear?
Cool.
And then if I'm going to say, so we touched upon emotion, which is what we're going to be speaking about with our guest next week, Hannah Clarke, all about emotion. And she is a plant medicine facilitator and also an energy expert from the island. So Emma, if you just want a quick one about Hannah before we wrap up.
Well, yeah, just obviously my 3 areas. One of them was emotion, again, energy. And for me, I think this is the hardest one. Yeah, especially if you've locked them in a box and you're not aware of them. But Hannah is, she's got so much knowledge about how emotions affect the body, whether it's through breath work or plant medicine. She has a real intuition with understanding the effect. And so that's why, and she's a wise woman of Ibiza. So I thought it would be good to invite her on.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well. So yeah, a dear friend of both of ours for sure. So Hannah Clarke next week, which is Wednesday, the 21st of October. And then, of course, if you're looking to get a hold of Cafe DM, you can come over to our socials and say hola at Cafe DM Ibiza on Instagram or Facebook, and on SoundCloud as well. And please share this with people who might need to hear this information as we continue on our, just Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And like I say, my co-host, my special guest all the way from the USA. And then, of course, if you find getting control of your health and fitness difficult, you can come over to my socials and I will give you a health evaluation for complimentary for just coming to say hello there. And that's at Unconditional Love Ibiza. So what I would like everybody to do is let us know if there's anything from Nathan's story that resonated with you in the comments below. I'd like to know, if you're feeling any of these, like the brain fog, or like you said, the muscle soreness or the joints or anything like that, if there's anything that resonates with you that maybe Nathan can give you a hand with, you know where to find him as well. So that being Cafe DM 023 with our special guest, Nathan Walz, all the way from the USA, and my co-host, Emma Sabin, all the way from her living room in Ibiza. That wraps us up today. So I say thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate you both being here.
Thanks so much.
Yeah,
had a great time.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll get to see you in Ibiza one of these days soon, Nathan.
Yeah, for sure.
We go raving on the beach. That's the best.
With our bums to the sun.
Oh yeah, let's go raving naked. That's like the best. Wow. Dirty raving naked. I love it.
Like it. Emma, good. All right, guys. I will see you later. So that's us. Adios.
Bye, guys.
Bye.